speaking about not asking for things, there might be things they don't sign up for. So I would like to, who definitely signed up for this, it's our next speaker, Dan. Please join. Oh, you're back.
Yeah. Oh, no font. First fail. The font's not there. Sorry, these slides are for me, not for you. It's because I can't remember the story I'm going to tell without them. So I'm Dan. I'm currently a design. What am I these days? I've been a lot of things. Product design manager at Gymshark now. These are the old slides. I've updated them since. Oh, okay, cool. Anyway, this is a short talk. You're going to take a lot away from it. So to make a design system, we all know you open Figma. That's all we really need. So you make some components. Doesn't really matter how many. Songs are really good and you spend a long time on them. You're kind of done. So I hope that was useful. And but the thing is, that's what we often get told. There's so much great stuff written in the community that people share about their experiences and what they find work. But a lot of it's focused on that kind of journey. And that doesn't really bear any resemblance to the real world. Not really. So why is it so difficult? Why is it not just you crack open Figma, you do what you love, you do what you know, and then everyone has a good time? That would be lovely. But it feels like we're not fulfilling the promise of design systems. So they're supposed to be quite a utopian ideal in a way, like, we'll just bring everyone together, man, and we'll share things, and we'll be creative, and like the engineers will be on board, and like products will get it, and that'll be so cool. We feel like we've done all the right things because we follow the advice that people share. We've spent a long time on our foundations, like a long time. These foundations are really good. The color ramps are just insane. The stuff we've done with transparency was next level, but no one really gives a shit. Why? We've done all the right things. So why does it feel like we're failing? Why is it that when you speak to so many people at whatever scale, this is probably not the first time they've tried to make a design system? It's probably not the first person in the organization at the moment trying independently to make a design system. So why do we keep ending up here? Not just as individuals, but companies of any scale. And what you tend to hear about is a lot of the really big scale stuff. Underneath those really, really big companies are everyone else, who could be at a startup, could be at a relatively small company, or a moderate-sized company doing quite well with a reasonable-sized product. Why are we getting it wrong then? It seems like we should be able to figure this out. There was some really insightful stuff from people sat here, which is gold. It was really good stuff. But still, we haven't solved it. I obviously lied. It's not about components. They don't really matter at all. They're a byproduct of doing the actual work. But no one really tells you that. Components are a byproduct. They aren't the work. So neither is it about tokens. They can be the most powerful thing in the world when you get them right. When you've got the scale and the structure and you're doing multi-brand stuff and you're doing this insane things that you never thought were possible, then it's about tokens. But that's not the work yet. Fundamentally, when you're really reductionist, I am a fan of being really reductionist, they're all people problems. All of these things, we focus on the craft. Whatever background we had, that's our comfortable place. That's what we know. So when we start thinking, like, we really should have a design system, it would give us all these benefits. It might, but you'll start with what you know. You'll crack open Figma and you go, yeah, we can make things better, couldn't we? Hey, you designer, work with me. We'll make some components and it'll make the world better. And that's the problem. It's either for me, not for you. People are doing a really, really great job of sharing what they know. This is not at all disparaging for people sharing stuff, but there's a lot of content around this is how you use Figma to make a design system. If that were the case, we wouldn't need events like this. We'd have nailed it day one. Crack open Figma, here's some components, we've solved it. It's done, but it's not a solved problem. So hence the title of the talk. A little while ago, I was a design advocate at Zero Height. And what I loved about that job was I spent so long just listening to people's stories. And there's a lot of time where people say, oh yeah, so I work at this kind of company and we're doing this. Sometimes the story sounds similar, but there's always a twist to the tale. A lot of the time, these things kind of started organically as well, just like that. Oh, I was a designer and it felt like we needed a design system, so we tried to get one going. And then you find out it's not about components. And then you find yourself in a world of pain of, how do I persuade my senior people that they need a design system? How do I talk to QAs? I've not done that before, I don't know what they do. So the common thing would be adoption. I'm full of cold, sorry. If you are someone who's approached the design system from, I'm a designer, I'm comfortable with my tooling, I'm going to make some components and we will change the world, this comes too late. You've already done the thing, and now your job is purely a sales job. You're trying to turn around to people and saying, I've got the answer, please, will someone use it? And it's too late. It's come way too late in the process. But we didn't know any better because we were scratching our own itch. We were trying to solve a problem in a way that we're comfortable with solving it. But now you're on the back foot. You've got a solution, and now you have to convince the world that this is somehow the right thing to do. And the same goes for contribution. If you are lucky enough, you're fortunate enough where you get to the point where a number of people are using this, a number of product teams are using it, how do you convince them to now be a part of it and say, oh, that thing you made, that's really cool, yeah, bring it in. Or we would welcome any changes you want to make. This is how we can go about doing it. How do you persuade someone to go above and beyond and do that? And I think it was Amy Hoop, who I noticed in the talk, was saying this is an act of altruism. Really, in a product team, you've got your commitments. You've got your backlog that goes on forever. You've got deadlines. And then someone's like, oh, on top of that, could you do this as well? Why on earth would you do that? And you do that because you see the benefit. You see the cycle of, if you contribute this little bit, everyone gets a lot. But that doesn't resonate at first. So you can say, yeah, you can be a part of this. Come on board. I've got the solution. But it's too late. They weren't involved. It doesn't get much more people-based than when you talk about governance. You ever tried to get a room full of people to agree on anything? I mean, that's fundamentally setting up for failure from the beginning. And now you're saying, okay, well, how do we make decisions about this going forward? We've got designers, cool. Designers, let's all agree on something. That's not going to happen. Engineers, right. Oh, shit. And now you try and bring them all together. That wasn't really swearing. And now you try and get them all together and go, how do we make a decision about the system when it impacts all of these disciplines? Everyone is impacted. You're not going to get decision-making made easy, so it doesn't get much more human than that. All people problems. All without opening Figma. I love Figma, but you don't need to open it to make a design system. Fundamentally, we haven't really solved the problem. You've made a thing, but why should anyone else care? You're in the bubble. You really love design systems. You love product design. Why should anyone else care? Yeah. Placeholder benefits, because we know what they are. We know that they get consistency, we get scalability, we get that stuff. We've probably said it 100 times each. Oh, why don't you care as much as I do? We'll be more consistent. So, who else thinks that's a problem within your company? You're going like, I've got 2 minutes of the CEO's time. CEO, we could be more consistent. Why are you looking at me like that? It doesn't resonate because you're not at all speaking their language, which is what was said earlier. But again, if you're trying to sell it, You're selling it on your terms. If you're saying consistency and stuff, no one else cares. That's a byproduct. And it's kind of talked about in the panel earlier. It says, thanks for stealing all my material. But when you think about value, whose value? What do they value? You're going to get more than one answer. You're going to get so many answers about what value actually is, to what stakeholders. It's a very, very mixed bag. So when you attribute value to it, it's not just, oh, it would be more valuable to us if we're more consistent. Why? What value does that have? If they're speaking to the head of product, what's valuable to them is exactly what folks were saying earlier. They want to ship things quicker. They want it more predictable. They want to get stuff out the door. They're responsible for it. So we do a terrible job of talking in other people's language about value. So why should they care? Fundamentally, I think there's a big problem where, because all of the advice that we see from other people is like, yeah, well, scalable, consistency. I'm not going to say consistency again. I'm fed up with that word now. What we don't hear about is, do your research. Find out what your problems are. That's the root of your design system. Design systems are only about components later on. If you have a problem as a company, maybe the design system is part of the solution. But you have to understand what your problems are. One of the unique things that we get as design system people is, as we start to question things and start to research, we largely get a unique view of the place that we work. Maybe no one's really prodded around and asked these questions before. Certainly not as a designer, because you've got enough to work on. So start a bit at a time going, we now see all of these departments, we see the structures, we have a sense of the internal culture, we have all of this stuff that maybe no one else has seen. So we've got a unique insight. It's what I tend to say to people all the time, actually, in the pub, over meals. Take those design system benefits and turn them the other way. I'm really great company when it comes to design systems. All right, so if consistency is a benefit, flip it on its head. Why aren't you consistent? I mean, it's not a hard question. But when you start asking it and you start working out, well, why is it we're not lining up? Why aren't we doing that? That's the problem. That's something you can start to anchor your design system in. Same as, why aren't we scalable? Why aren't we doing things as fast as we could? Those start to unearth the actual problems. So you don't need to talk about these prospective benefits. You start to go, you've got a point, this is slow. No one's having a good time. So operationally, you can start your design system by going, can we make that a bit better? Maybe that involves components, maybe it doesn't. And I think when we look at all the content, all the really, really good stuff that people share, and it tends to be a lot of the really big companies that do the sharing, which is awesome. I will not take anything away from any of it, but your design system might not look like theirs. We know that scale is a massively different thing. If you're a single designer on a startup, you should not be making eBay. You're not going to be making a design system like that. Yours might have 10 really good components that are really well used. That is not public facing. That's so cool. You have solved a problem. And that's where the joy is. Like, you've actually solved a problem. And so to kind of elaborate on another point, it's not one thing. And so you can run it like a product if you have a sense internally of, we run products like this. But like Louise said, there is a service level, but you're providing infrastructure. You're underpinning all of your digital products. That is a seismic shift. It's not a nice to have. It's like you were saying as well. It's like if you bake it into the process, it's infrastructure. It's a layer underneath the products. So it's all of these things. And you can probably find more definitions than that. So it's far from being one thing. I really wish I had my font. So what we find ourselves is, when it's grown organically, we're suddenly in this place where we're way outside our comfort zone. We love our craft, we love what we're doing, and we're trying to solve some problems. So all of a sudden we're like, oh, I'm doing a lot of stuff that isn't that. I'm selling, I am educating, I am doing a lot of talking and listening and all this stuff. I'm spending so little time on my tools where I'm happy, where I'm safe and I'm comfortable. Why am I now trying to make a case to talk to heads of department and stuff like that? Why am I now trying to sell? I just wanted to do some good work. Why am I now thinking, these processes could be improving a little bit? That's not what I did this for. I didn't get into making a design system to try and fix your processes. But that's the work. This stuff makes making components worthwhile. So if you fix the process and you know how you can get stuff out, then you can make something. Otherwise, you've got 100 components that no one cares about. They've got a token structure which is theoretically perfect, but it's not used in production. No one cares. So unless we can get something of value out, it doesn't matter what the something is. But fixing that operational stuff, the process of how are you going to do stuff, that's what matters. All of a sudden you're having conversations with product people going, I don't know what you do. This is important, isn't it? How do you say that this design system thing is as important as running another A/B test on a button to make another million? Don't know. We find ourselves thinking about community and different forms of communication and how do we create feedback loops? How do we not just broadcast but try and listen? I wasn't taught how to do that. I don't know. So we're looking at all these extra skill sets, let alone accountancy. And we're feeling like the bit of the job, why we started doing this, is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Oh, by the way, new people might start, and you might have to help new product teams get on board with the design system. You might have to keep telling people what a design system is and how to use it again and again and again and again. Who's going to do that? It takes time. Someone has to. All of this is the work. Who else signed up to do all of that? I didn't. But now it's my job, and I actually love all that. But at the beginning, it felt like that commitment to solving a problem gets you in these weird spaces of doing stuff you really didn't imagine yourself doing. And so if you came into it from a design or engineering point of view, all of a sudden you're doing very little of that. I didn't sign up for that. What we can do to get some degree of success is basing it on real problems, not the hypothetical benefits. Literally no one outside of design cares about consistency. They know if it's wrong. They'll tell you this is just weird. But it's not, being just a bit weird is not a business challenge. By understanding the different types of value, we can stop talking about the proposed benefits and say, this thing you care about, yeah, we care about that too. We're coming at it from a different angle, but we can agree that is valuable, whether it's financial or anything else. Like, well, yeah, if the company doesn't make money, I don't have a job. Yeah, I care about that. And one of the things around it all is that everyone's story is different. Everyone's context is different. That's fundamentally because it's all about people. So not just those people around you, but the qualities that people bring, especially en masse, when you have structures and cultures and subcultures. And so if you say, well, perhaps you have a design team that's quite close, they innately will have a culture of how they work, how they communicate, and how they read each other. If you have a distributed team or many design teams, that will be difficult because everyone will have a slightly different culture, a different way of communicating. This stuff is really hard. It just is. But the good news is you do all of that, then you get to do this. That's it. Oh, it's the old version.
Sorry. Take a seat.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. Not for signing up for that. Do we have any immediate comments, questions? We have a microphone ready as well, I believe. Any comments or questions for Dan?
What font did you choose?
Museo slab.
So that's the one we didn't get to see. Picture it. Oh, that's a nice
chunky.
font. That's a really nice font.
Yeah.
Wish you had that. Any comments on this? Anyone feel familiar? Is this the whole stuff? I think we talked about this. Well, you definitely do, because you were asking the question earlier. So you nodding. I 100% agree. So we've done therapist. Yeah. Now we're an operations manager as well. Yeah. People structure. I think it's really interesting because I actually had this conversation with somebody at my company just the other day, where you're basically realizing that quite often as designers, and especially around design system, you're actually not solving a design problem. You're solving an operational problem in an organization, or a people problem, as you say as well. And I think, I don't know in your experience, I think the way that design system or the way that design is handled or how they tackle these operational problems often depends, and I think someone alerted to this earlier, where does design sit within an organization? Now I'm taking this operational, now I'm going for the operational part. So, whether it sits with brand, or whether it's digital, or whether it sits with engineering, tech, depending on where design is associated with, it's actually a very different approach and how people look at that. What's in your experience?
I think there's another thing related to that as well, where speaking to some people in really, really large organizations, they already might have design ops, research ops, content ops even, and all these things. So formalizing operational roles is a thing. But for the rest of us, it isn't. But those functions are still needed. We just don't have the capacity to go, oh, we need one of those.
Yeah.
Having someone do design ops changes things. But you wouldn't know, because unless you've had that role before or identify that need, why would you?
So how do we get that happening when we come in? We're here to get design system going, and all of a sudden we need to introduce design ops.
Yeah, but I think it's recognizing that that function exists. However you do it, whether you take it on yourself or you agree that as a collective, that's a problem. That's a function that we need. And either you can spread it across yourselves, there's different responses, but recognizing first of all there is a function that you don't have a response to.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you have anyone that's new to the design system and seeing this and thinking, definitely not signing up.
Run away.
I was about to ask, what's your advice? And I was hoping that it wasn't run away.
No.
So how do I'm new to design system, I'm thinking I really want to introduce this to my organization, and all of a sudden you're telling me that I can't even open Figma because I need to learn all of these new skills, including accounting. That
accounting one's going to scar me now. I think it's about balance, because at the end of the day, especially if you're in a smaller company, there might just be you or a few of you, and that's all you've got to work with. But so you need to spend some time in the tooling and get comfortable. How are you going to do this in the right way? So there's definitely an argument for doing some of that. But then having curiosity is just the other massive skill. Speak to people you've never spoken to. Ask questions you've never asked. Go why do we do that? Sorry, what do you do? And just, you can start mapping it out. And so my favorite thing about FigJam is Post-its, those sticky notes. Keep it super lo-fi and just be like, that's my current understanding. Someone can come along and go, oh, that's not right. Cool, it's moved. How is it? Tell me. And then starting with hardly any notes at all, you can start to have those conversations one-on-one, start to get, this is how the world is. It doesn't have to be really high effort.
Excellent. I obviously love that, because as I said earlier, I think when you start this journey, you need to ensure that you talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people that you talk to are going to be outside that immediate type of people that they come to and say, speak to these 5 people, they are important, and then where are the other 10 that you haven't thought about?
Exactly. So, and I think that going along with that is the people that always get left out are test engineers or QAs. They're the gatekeepers of quality, right? Everything goes by them. So whose life can you make better from the design system? It's going to be them. They're going to be the ones who are going, this is the best way we can make it efficient. And what I found is when you get to test automation and that kind of level of granularity, if you don't have to test the same thing again and again and again because you can rely on it, you've made their lives a hell of a lot easier, which makes it more efficient.
And you might not talk to them, you might talk to them now and you might not speak to them again for a long time, but when you least expect it, that person is going to pop up, and because you remember to include them in the initial conversation, they're going to be there person who opens something for you further down the line. That's my strong belief. I think that's very, very true.
Completely agree.
Do we have any other comments, questions for Dan?
Any rotten fruit?
Is that rotten fruit over here? No, sorry. Go for it.
I'm back with another question for a different person. Thank you, Dan. A lot of this resonated throughout my career, but my question is, when you are working on a design system, you're obviously exposed to a lot of parts of the business that you might not have previously, and you do find operational inefficiencies, and you're like, oh my God, this is why is brand doing it this way? Why is it so old school? Do you ever find you get yourself in too deep, that you're not solving a design system anymore?
Every single time.
And how do you retract from that? Or do you not? Do you just run and go solve that problem?
It's different every time, but I think sometimes it's laying it out and going, I've found these problems. That might be the first time people have seen them. And so sharing it and like giving them visibility is really important, because they're not all yours to solve just because you found them. But you can say, I've done a bit of digging, look what I found. And for a lot of people, that might be even shocking. I have no idea it was like that. And in no way are you taking responsibility for it at that point. You're saying, I've done this first bit of discovery, I'm just looking for stuff. From that, I feel these things might be things we can tackle, but you still laid it out for everyone else to see. And you're not claiming ownership of it. You're saying, I've done some digging, I wanted to learn what we could do, and this is what I'm hearing. If anyone else wants to act on it, that's really cool. We should absolutely do that together. And maybe you can just inform it and be part of that journey. But you're opening it up, you're inviting people in, and then maybe you can go, it's realistic to look at that one.
Thank you.
That's good. Anyone else? No?
It's getting late.
It's getting, yeah. Okay, one last over here.
Just a quick one, because what it sounds like, what you're describing is a lot like service design.
Yeah.
So do you think there's a sort of parallel there between the sort of design ops and actually designing a service with all of that?
I think when you get to the point of confidence, then absolutely. But I think sometimes being really rough and ready and just going like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but that sounds interesting. That links to what that guy was saying. I think there's different modes and different levels of maturity. So there's absolutely a stage where I've seen service design be really important. Not least because then everyone can point to the same thing and go, oh, that's what we're doing. And I think that visibility thing of managing expectations by going, we can point to that. Everyone can point to that. We can see what the expectations are and how this is going to work. So yeah, I think as well, when you look at contributions, how you might handle bugs or anything like that, which often gets forgotten about, these different ways of having the service layer. So if you get a contribution, what's your response to it? Do you say, yay, to everything, or do you triage and then have a process? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There is definitely a connection between service design, design ops. I actually went to a design ops conference last couple of weeks ago, and where design system was very present, and I think there's a lot of overlap. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's all we have time for. So thank you so much. Appreciate that.
No worries.
I'll see you at the window later. That's my. Oh, that's it. Thank you.